Hi everybody, I'm Phil Fatiga and welcome to the Millcreek Government Channel, and today two very special guests for you. And the topic today revolves around something that touches all of us, Alzheimer's. Let me introduce the lady sitting in the middle, Kristen Byers. She is with the Alzheimer's Association, and next to Kristen is a face familiar to all Erie Times sports news readers a couple of years ago. Is that correct? 10. Jim Camp. Welcome both of you. Appreciate it very, very much. And as I said, we're here to discuss Alzheimer's, and as you see the sign right there, the Alzheimer's Association. Kristen, let's go first because Jim's got a great story to tell you. The Alzheimer's Association does what? It was formed because of, and you have about 2 or 3 days to answer that. That's a very long question.
Sure.
With a long answer.
The Alzheimer's Association is a nonprofit organization, and we're here to provide hope, help, support, and really ultimately our vision is a world without Alzheimer's.
Is it fair to say, as I said at the beginning, both of you can chime in, probably not a person watching this can say that they've never heard of this or they don't know anybody that's had it. I mean, it's touched everybody. And has it been just lately, within the last 10, 12 years, that this has come about, become more recognizable, more reportable, more understandable, more diagnosed? Because it was always there, but we didn't know what it was?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, and most people do think, well, gosh, this is, we see so much more. Yeah. And there's a couple of reasons for that. You know, one being there's a great deal more awareness, but more importantly is that folks are living longer and living differently. And so that lends itself to an increase in the prevalence of the disease, as well as we've got better diagnostics. You know, now you can diagnose Alzheimer's disease with a 95% accuracy level.
Wow, wow. Well, as I said, Jim is here, and I've known Jim for a very long time when he worked at the Erie Times News in the sports department. And his story is just a wonderful story, and please tell us your story involving Alzheimer's, Jim.
Well, I've been involved with Alzheimer's for over 20 years now. My wife was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's when she was 50 years old, which is unusual, but it's becoming more and more common. I kept her at home for 3 years after she was diagnosed. She spent the last 39 months of her life at St. Mary's East in the Gallagher Center, which is a wonderful facility for Alzheimer's. While my wife was suffering through Alzheimer's, her mother and my mother were also diagnosed with Alzheimer's.
All three at once?
All three at one time.
Wow.
My wife died at age 56 of a heart attack at St. Mary's Home in 2001. My mother-in-law was in her mid-80s when she died in 2002, and my mother was in her mid-80s also when she died in 2007. In addition to these three women who were three of the most important women in my life, I've lost 2 aunts, and I have 2 other family members now suffering with Alzheimer's. So I have learned a great deal about the disease, about being a caregiver, about support groups, about a lot of things about Alzheimer's. It's a disease that it's terribly difficult to deal with. Each case is individual. There's no cookie cutter answers. You know, when my mother was diagnosed, I had a doctor tell my sister at the time that he said, if you want to know what's going to happen to your mom in the next 4 or 5 years, I can tell you. And my sister said, no, I think I'll talk to my brother. So she called me and I said, have that doctor call me, because he has no idea what he's talking about. Okay. While my wife was at St. Mary's, it's a 39-bed unit, and ironically, she was there for 39 months before she passed away. But each of those 39 residents there has a different story. It's a different way it runs its course. I've known people who were diagnosed with Alzheimer's who lived for as little as 2 years. I know another woman who lived for almost 25 years. So it's a wide range, and they can go in many different ways. I mean, they can have trouble swallowing, they can fall and break a hip, which leads to physical problems. My wife had a heart attack at 56, or she would be alive today.
There is, of note of late, there is a book upon which a movie was based called Still Alice. The book is it's a fictitious account, but it's written by a Harvard-trained neurologist. I think that's fair to say. And of course, the movie stars Julianne Moore.
Correct.
And I want to ask Jim, did the movie capture what you went through, or is that going to get too personal?
I have yet to see the movie.
Okay.
But I went through a wide range of things. My wife was diagnosed when she was 50, but we started noticing problems probably 2 years before that time.
Such as?
She was an excellent card player. We used to play 500. We were in a 500 club for many years. And all of a sudden, she would forget how to keep score. Okay. Or she would forget what trump was. She would walk from the living room to the kitchen to get a drink, and by the time she got to the kitchen, she would forget while she was there. Just little things added up. Then she started losing things. She lost her keys. She lost gloves. She lost. And
how did you react to that?
How did I react to that?
How did you react to that?
It's difficult, but I kind of knew. I had done some reading. I kind of knew what was coming. At least I thought I knew what was coming. And as the occurrences got more frequent, I sought medical help. I first took her to our family doctor. Then she went through a series of specialists, had medical and physical tests. She had CAT scans and brain scans and blood work and MRIs and mental testing at Cleveland. And all the testing does is eliminates things till it comes down to the diagnosis of Alzheimer's.
How did she react to that?
How did she react to that? She was in denial for quite a while. We were told the news actually in a neurologist's office here in Erie, and she is probably one of the few people at that time who were told straight up, "You have Alzheimer's." Mm-hmm. It was a very difficult time. My three kids and I think we all knew it was coming, but getting that news is really crushing.
Yeah. We were at a movie, which I recommend highly that you see, and I'm not quite sure how you can get it. It's a documentary on Glenn Campbell, who came forward and said he's been diagnosed with Alzheimer's and he's allowed his life from that point forward to be recorded in a documentary as he recounts what it's like and his family and his concert dates. And the name of the movie is, Kristen?
I'll Be Me.
I'll Be Me. Mm-hmm. What amazed me, and I'm listening to Jim talk, is here he is saying, "Where's the bathroom? I can't find the bathroom. Who took the things off my bed?" Fits of anger. But get him dressed, put him on the stage with his daughter and his son, and the lights are on, and the crowd is there, and the music starts, and you watch his fingers fly up and down the frets of that guitar, and it's like 30 years have not happened. It's just there. And the neurologist, I think, said, well, he reaches somewhere deep into that memory to find that. I don't know if it's just ingrained forever, but there were times when it wasn't so good either. He didn't know where he was, he stumbled, and sadly today there seems to be an argument taking place between the children and the wife. But would you recommend, my long-winded question, would you recommend people seeing the movie?
Absolutely. I mean, I think any way that you can, there's a number of different films out there, and I'll Be Me and also Alive Inside are two fantastic films that really delve into how music and memory are so important.
I noticed when my uncle passed away in a local home here not too long ago that they were asking for headsets for people to listen to music. You want to comment on that, either one of you? And then I'm going to get back to the movie. Jim, how did you react to the movie? The movie with Glenn Campbell, was it accurate?
I thought the movie was amazing. To me, it accurately portrayed the various things you can go through. Mm-hmm. It's a wide range, and like I said, there's nobody that's going to tell you what's going to happen. That's one of the real difficult things of Alzheimer's. Okay. Some people are very docile, some people are very quiet. My wife went through a range where she would be sitting 1 minute, and the next minute she'd get almost violent, mm-hmm. and very upset, very agitated, throw medicine. My mother, on the other hand, was very, very quiet, very gentle through the whole process. So it's a whole range of things.
You've always been, as long as I've known you, an extremely gentle man, very soft-spoken, very intellectual, think things through. never extremes of emotions. Did that test you when she became that way, or did you say, I know this is not you doing this, this is this disease?
Oh, it's difficult, but you'd realize that. You know, ironically, when my wife was diagnosed with Alzheimer's at the same time, my son's father-in-law, my daughter-in-law's dad, was diagnosed with ALS at the same time.
Wow.
So, and they were both 50 years of age.
Wow.
So we, at that time, watched the two of them regress. One body was fine and the mind was going, the other just the opposite. And they're two very tragic diseases, but Alzheimer's, you know, like I say, it's affected my life the last 20 plus years, and it's something that's going to affect more and more people as time goes on, unfortunately.
Yes, yeah, that's all the data I've read suggests that, and there's a couple of booklets that Kristen's brought with her. If you use the word disease, it says that possibly there is a challenge to finding a cure. Is that fair to say that? I mean, we found a cure for a lot of things that we thought, like polio, for example. I remember when I'm old enough to remember taking that thing, and you know, everything's okay. But tuberculosis is still around, but it's curable. Where's the research on the disease and identifying it, saying we believe you have a good chance, your DNA indicates, or as Jim says, maybe there's a, I don't know, is there a history of it in the families? Should I be worried?
Yeah.
Should my children be worried? Big question.
Yeah, yeah, a few questions in a question.
Big question.
Yeah, so let me address first the research. There is a great deal of hope on the horizon. One of our greatest challenges is that we look at the trajectory of Alzheimer's disease, and it's one of the most expensive diseases, and with no cure and no significant treatment. And so while there's certainly a lot of research that's being done, what we need is something significant from our government, honestly. When you look at where we were years ago with HIV/AIDS, it's going to take something that significant to increase research funding for us to get there.
That's why I mentioned the Glenn Campbell movie, simply because he may become that person, that Michael J. Fox Parkinson person, perhaps, or Jerry Lewis MS person. I don't know. Is there hope that that would happen? You need to have that, you know, I'm going to use a bad word, the cachet of, we need to pay more attention to this. This affects everybody. Right now, is it getting the big funding dollars to research?
I think having that public figure, the champions, if you will, who have a lot of influence, definitely makes a huge difference. Maria Shriver is another huge champion, and there's a campaign called Wipe Out Alzheimer's, and Your Brain Matters. And so it's collectively with folks like Glenn Campbell, Maria Shriver, David Hyde Pierce, you know, so many people are impacted. And so it's really trying to create some significant change.
You said something I thought was very interesting. I'm going to ask Jim this, and thank you again, Jim, for being here. This is wonderful. There's a financial attachment to this. How do you interpret that? That means that you can no longer take care of this person, and they have to be put into a place where they aren't going to walk out the door and disappear? I mean, when you say financial, what do you mean?
There comes a time when there came a time when I had to have someone with Mary Jo when I wasn't there, when I was working. So I went through a process of hiring home health care workers, which is a tricky job, to be very honest. These people will come into your home, but they always have to be paid in cash. There's no checks, there's no money trail. Some are much better than others. I went through 8 different caregivers in less than a year. One who lasted 4 hours. Just could not handle the pressure. I managed to pay them, which is not a cheap date, but I got through it. But it's something that you have to come to. In my mother's case, I had a brother and sister who were still living at home, and they were able to stay with her, one of the other of them. So at the end, they brought in home health care workers. But most people come to a point where they say, a nursing facility is the best option. Thankfully, there are more and more Alzheimer's units now available. I'm most familiar with the Gallagher Center at St. Mary's East, which is a terrific facility. But the need for facilities far outranks the number of beds currently available as far as I'm concerned. And there are waiting lists at several of these places.
Very long. You have a website for people to go get information, a phone number. Now's the time to tell us.
Sure. Our website is www.alz.org/PA, and we have a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week helpline, and that's 1-800-272-3900. And so, just one other thing I wanted to mention, Phil, is if our listeners out there are looking to make a difference, the way that you can do that is go to our website and register for a program we have called Trial Match. And that's really about not just hoping for a cure and hoping for a change, but taking a step to do so. And all of us can participate in that by just signing up and seeing what your personal match is. And so it does make a difference.
And Jim, you do that specifically. Now's the time that you said, can I mention this? And I said, absolutely.
My main purpose in being here today, to be very truthful with you, is trying to get people to support our team in the Walk to End Alzheimer's, which is in September. We have walked for the last 17 years, and we've been the #1 team for the last 17 years. I'm very proud to say that we've raised over $175,000 during that time, and we will walk again in September. Those who would like to contribute can send a check made out to Alzheimer's Association. Send it to me at 4223 Four Seasons Trail, Erie 16506. It's a great cause, and I can't say enough about the people who have supported us through the years. I have people who have given a check every year, 17 years running, and will continue to do so.
I think you refer to yourself as Camps Champs?
Yeah.
Camps Champs
Absolutely.
is the team.
That's a great name. Let's let that percolate a little bit. I want to ask both of you, what causes Alzheimer's? What is it that causes the brain to, I don't know, shut down, shrink, not get enough of, produce too much of? Either one of you or both of you at the same time?
Well, the best way to think of Alzheimer's is that it affects all of the brain. The most challenging thing is, like Jim said, everyone's experience is a little different, and that's because the disease manifests slightly different in everyone.
Okay. Is your experiences, Jim, they were in the broad scheme of things, yeah, that's a normal, whatever you want to define normal as. Some people are this way, some people are this way. Your wife was younger than normal, I think, to perhaps do this. And that leads me to my next tough question is it possible that there's something that's carried through the generations, your children, are they at risk?
It hasn't been proven, but it happens too often. So naturally, my two daughters are very concerned because they lost both their mother and both grandmothers to this disease.
Yeah.
So that's the next.
And there's no male-female relationship here. It's as much male as female.
Right. Right.
Unfortunately, just because women live longer.
Yes. Yeah.
There are more
and
women.
we're all living longer. And who's doing the best research on this? Do you have any idea? Is it the research colleges? Is it the Johns Hopkins? Is it the Mayo clinics? Is it or is it the private people who are saying, yeah, I think we're onto something. We're not looking at the silver bullet here, but we're looking at the combination, like the AIDS people look at combinations of, and then finally, where do they stand in the research right now? Are they waiting for the next big thing to happen?
Sure. Well, I'm proud to share with you that the Alzheimer's Association is the second greatest funder of research. And right here in Pennsylvania, there's a number of clinical trials. Probably closest to us would be the UPMC Alzheimer's Disease Research Center, where they're looking at a number of trials that are very interesting, from genetics to different imaging. They say that the changes in the brain happen 20 years before symptoms present. So how can we get ahead of that? And so a lot of different things.
Jim, you covered sports for a while, and I have grandchildren, one in particular who's very active in sports, played tackle football since he's been 6. And we're going, maybe not so much this time around, honey, Any link between that batting around the brain and you see these guys end up in their careers, some of them commit suicide. Is there a link at all to the Alzheimer's?
As you see more and more pro football players and ex-pro football players suffering from mental problems after having a series of concussions through the years, you really tend to think that that's probably true. And lately you've seen more and more people, football players, leaving in the prime of their careers just because of that reason. If you take 4 or 5 or 6 hits in the head, or you've been diagnosed with 3 or 4 concussions, you start to think that maybe down the road that's going to have a cumulative effect, and probably it does. I'm not sure it's ever going to deter a lot of people from playing football, but I think it's going to stop some.
There's so many questions to be asked here, and I want to tread lightly. I don't want to get too heavy on this, but everybody goes through this, and it all happens, as Jim so wonderfully and accurately pointed out, at different ways and different things. So how do you comfort these people? What can you say to them? I mean, do you have people who say, we need to talk, and let me share my experiences, and I'll be there for you? Because as Jim said, you get some of the home health care workers come in, and it just doesn't work out. It just doesn't work.
Well, we are lucky in Erie County to have some great resources to support folks in the community. And from at the Alzheimer's Association, we can help sort of navigate that system, help families with that, because it's overwhelming.
Yes, yes. I would not sure what I would do if somebody told me that. What would there be what was the woman's name that had the 6 or 7 ways that you deny death? First you go into total denial. Then
right.
Did that happen to you, Jim? Did that happen with your wife? Did she just simply, and did she reach a point though where she didn't know you?
Oh yes, that happens with everybody. I mean,
yeah.
it was probably a year and a half, maybe more, before she died that happened.
Or did they just simply go into that fog?
They go into like a shell. But the one point I'd like to make for people who have family members suffering with Alzheimer's is, even when they're in a home or in an Alzheimer's facility, don't stop visiting. No. Because those visits are so important. And even though you haven't had any recognizable effect on somebody for a long time, I'll tell you a quick story. My wife had been unable to know me for many months. And one day I got off the elevator at St. Mary's and I walked toward her and she got up and said, "Jim," out of nowhere. Yeah. So you never know where there's a spark may come.
That's what the discussion I think around the book was, Still Alice, is that there's something in there somewhere. There's a spark, a soul. I don't know. How religious do you become around this? Did that at all occur to you?
You never know when something's going to happen. That's the whole thing. It's just, right. But I've seen too many people who have family members who get to that point where they're not recognizing anybody, and they just quit visiting. Okay. You can't abandon these people. I mean, even just grabbing their hand and taking them for a walk, or just sitting, rubbing their hand or rubbing their arm. I mean, anything that's soothing to them is a help as far as I'm concerned.
You're chiming in. Go ahead.
Yeah, and just a note, because it matters. Those visits matter. I may forget the name of a loved one, but one thing that's often not forgotten is the ability to love and the ability to have that back and forth. It may not make perfect sense, but everyone finds great value in the social engagement, and that's really key.
Good words, good words. This is Kristen Byers, who's from the Alzheimer's Association, and Jim Camp, longtime sports writer with the Erie Times News, good friend of mine, coming and telling you their stories about Alzheimer's, and Jim, of course, personalizing it with the passing away of his wife and his mother and his mother-in-law. Did I have that correct?
Correct.
Yeah. We got a couple of minutes left, and I would think that right now, this is really wonderful what you're doing, that you first of all agreed to come out and do this, that you exposed and opened your life. And again, I want to say that Glenn Campbell did that with his life. He said, here I am, folks, you know. Some parts were not, some parts were very sad, very tearful, and some parts were joyful and joyful. So Jim, we're going to give you the last word. So Kristen, tell us, you want to send us money, you want to volunteer, or what's the deal? Phone numbers, email addresses, websites, etc.
All right. So if someone's interested in getting engaged with us, there's many ways to do so, whether it be getting help, support, or supporting us for financially. There's many ways to help.
I want to ask you one final question. The color purple, significant for the Alzheimer's, or just a nice color that you chose?
It's been our color for years. What I would say significant would be the symbol, and that symbolizes a person and research, our dual mission.
All right. Jim, you have the last word.
Two things I'd like to say real quick. Anybody that gets a chance to see the Glenn Campbell movie should take that opportunity. It's a powerful movie and will leave a real impression on you, because a lot of people hear the word Alzheimer's, but this gives you a real inside look at what actually goes on. Secondly, I would ask for your support for our efforts, our Camps Champs team, and the Walk to End Alzheimer's in September. If you can't find an address, call the Alzheimer's Association. They will give you my address. It is 4223 Four Seasons Trail, Erie 16506. If you need my phone number, the Alzheimer's Association can also provide that. Thank you so much for your support. It's a terrific charity. It's a wonderful cause, and I hope you can support us.
Yeah.
We sure will. And all these organizations need a volunteer like you, Jim. I mean, you are out in front and telling a great story. Kristen, nice to meet you. Thanks for being here.
So much.
And of course, thanks to you for always being with us. I appreciate that very, very much. I'm Phil Fatica. Until next time.
You're watching the Millcreek Government Channel, powered by WQLN Public Media.